It's time to talk about things. It's happy hour. It's Wednesday. It's NutBallCop. It's partly sunny. A fairly nice day here. Hope you're doing okay on your end. Thank you for joining. Um, I have to admit, yesterday, I was ramping up. I was preparing. I was going to sit down and get my notepad and do either a live session like I did last year or do a streaming notes posts about what was going on. And about, I don't know, 45 minutes before it started, I just looked around and I was like, no, no, ain't happening. Nope, don't want to be here. So that's why I put out the picture. I went down to the beer garden and I was walking by and they had the Warriors on the big 60-inch screen. So I was like, oh, I can go in and have a lager and um, watch one of the quarters in the Warriors game. That seems like a better option than what I was planning on doing. Um, yeah, I got my stuff. Rain was coming in, so I grabbed my baseball cap and I grabbed my pea coat. Um, Called an Uber and headed downtown and went and had a few beers. Talked to some friends at the pub. Wife got out of work late. She had a late meeting. We went out to a late dinner. I just thought that would be like a better mental health evening than dealing with dear leader porn star Humper's bullshit. And I said last night, I'll still go over the transcript, and which I did this morning. Logged in, was figuring out a few things, like trying to watch the power delivery over the new switches. I was figuring out those object identifiers, and I took a break. And I was like, okay, let me go find the transcript on AP. They usually have it. I found it. I started reading it, and I couldn't even make it through the first couple of paragraphs. And I was like, well, none of this is true. Most of what he blathered on about was a series of misinformation, disinformation, propaganda, political boisterousness that had no substance. It was just empty crap he was spouting, or he was just doing his, you know, we can almost call it a John Smith routine at this point. The Mormon dude with his magical little golden tablets. Oh, I have to put the blanket over my head because only I can read the magical tablets. Only I understand the economy. I did. I read it and I got down about halfway through it, and I'm like, okay, let's do a little analysis thing. I posted this as a essay earlier today. Let's have ChatGTP take a look at the entire transcript as it is, and anything that is not like verifiable by fact, study, the CBO, the GAO, whoever, Brennan Center, Crew, Cato, somebody, outside that says, yeah, what he just said, that's true. 98%, almost 99% of the speech gets removed once you take out the stuff that's not actually verifiable as fact. So we've gone from a post-truth world to a post-truth nightmare pretty quick, because looking at that, uh, um, looking at that output, it's well, why am I getting a echo? Okay, I think my browser just doubled up on me. Try not to do that again. Um, the The portions of this, the fact that this was the longest State of the Union in the history of State in the Unions, okay? And when I gave this to ChatGTP and I said, "Whatever isn't verifiable fact, go ahead and flag that and remove that out." Just in the first quick run, anything that wasn't factual based that had to be removed, it basically broke down into these leads of sentences were like the primers to, like, take that out of the untruthful speech. Nation in crisis. No, our government is in crisis because we're led by assholes. The nation is not in crisis. Stagnant economy, but only under Biden and Obama. Every time Trump has arrived, suddenly it flips like a switch into this wondrous economy. Nobody can believe how good it's doing. But it was a stagnant economy on January 27th when he got inaugurated on the 28th. Miracles happened. Inflation at record levels. Yet when he gets into office, inflation doesn't exist. The border went from wide open border, quote, to zero immigrants. Both sides of that coin are bullshit. Rampant crime. I've addressed this a dozen times now. Crime is very low when you compare it to historical periods, especially when you compare it to the uptick in crime in the late 80s, early 90s, and the very high crime period which was in the 1970s. Just the rest of it is a unfounded complaint of his. He's claimed the economy had the quote turnaround for the ages, close quote. No. The border is secure. He thinks so. He has to say it's so because he followed up with quote zero illegal aliens admitted. Okay, that's just rewriting how the way we check people at the border. If you think no illegal aliens got into the United States in 2025, um, this is more of the fantasy thing where you literally have to live in fantasy land to believe this shit. The strongest, most secure border in history. He hasn't done anything to secure the border more other than project about how he's going to secure the border more. A record 56% fentanyl drop. Just a number he made up out of his ass. The largest murder decline in recorded history. Just completely fabricated. Lowest number, according to murders, quote, lowest number in 125 years. No, the per capita rates were lower 100 years ago. He just tried to rewrite all of criminology and criminal statistics to come up with that bolsterous lie. Roaring economy like never before. No, we had a roaring economy like never before. It was called the tech boom, which turned into the tech bubble, which turned into the tech recession. Then we had the roaring housing market that was the largest ever, that turned into the housing bust, that turned into the great credit crisis. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about here. Enemies are scared. Don't even know what that means. Don't even know what that means. America respected again. Well, that's just false because when I talk to people from overseas that I know, respect is not a word that comes up in the conversation. So if we take out all the superlatives, all the absolutism, all the historical comparisons with zero documentation applied, or he's just applying that the causation of all the positive events are him. That's the most egregious stupidity out of this. He literally thinks his presence is the solution. But then again, I asked you in a essay, what are you all going to do when he goes full on Idi Amin? We're there. Okay. So when you remove the superlatives, you remove the absolutes, you remove the emotional framing, you will lose the self-congratulations, which is none. Fucking stop. Oh, I'm the best guy ever. Jesus wish he was me. Ah, I'm that great guy. Oh, I need rotor cuff surgery. I've smacked myself on the back so many times. Look how much I'm winning. self-congratulation shit is narcissism at a level I didn't think could exist, but there it is. When he does historical comparisons without citations, or he just makes a casual claim without evidence, if you have to dump all the crap out of the speech, and I gave the entire text um, of the speech to ChatGPT, and I said, just to remove anything that we can't verify that's not truthful, blah 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 blah. We end up with a tiny speech. Um, the number of words in his full transcript is 10,612. The words remaining after we put in the verifiability filter, 133 words out of 10,612. We had to remove 10,479 words out of 10,612 words. That means to make the speech truthful, we had to remove 98.75% of the speech, the State of the Union speech. So you got to remove essentially 99% of the speech to remove the crap. So there was no superlatives, no unverified claims, no projections, no causation without data, no rhetorical framing. And this is a test that he is doing something very, very purposeful. Okay. He's literally re-narrativizing the entire situation and telling you the truth can only come from him. Okay. And again, pick a dictator of the 20th century. This is their model. Okay. Now, one of there's a whole list of things he did that were less than on the truthful side of the equation. Absolute claims, statistical claims without sourcing, casual assertions, emotional amplification, political accusations, historical superlatives, and somebody recently taught him, because I don't think he understands a lot on his own. Like I seriously don't think he can read well, and reading and writing and basic arithmetic, not his forte. But someone has taught a new cover-up tactic, or they're using a cover-up tactic to try to cover dear leader's ass. And the tactic they're using is something called forward-looking statements. Because this just happened in the last 2 weeks. The White House did press releases and website releases explaining about how this Trump RX scheme, and it's just a scheme. It isn't a healthcare plan. It's just a scheme. It's just to distract you. It's something to convince you that, they harmed you by allowing you to see a doctor under the Affordable Care Act. That's somehow wronged Americans. So they're going to pull that away from you. And that's their plan. They're going to pull healthcare away from working Americans because it's just not good enough for you. And we're going to place it with schemes thought up by the cranks currently occupying the White House, like this Trump RX website. This Trump RX website doesn't solve shit when it comes to prescriptions. Not okay. If you are already on government subsidies on Medicare, have a discount card program, or you have insurance for work, or you simply tell the pharmacist you're paying out of pocket and you would like the cheapest generic solution that's equivalent, you would save more money, according to 3 different reports I read, than by going to Trump RX. Okay. The total amount of drugs out of the 20,000 drugs that are on the pharmaceutical market now, there's a total of 43 prescriptions you can now buy through Trump RX. So reporters reached out to the White House and said, what is all this rigmarole about when you literally have 0.01% of the available prescriptions, none of the top 100 most expensive prescriptions, and you're not even getting into the most popular prescriptions, the most used prescriptions. You seem to have just picked 43 medications at random, declared that you save money on these more on these 43 prescription drugs than anybody else, when a basic survey shows that's not even remotely true. And then they go, "Oh, but he's using Norway as the example." Okay, the reporters went to pharmaceutical pricing experts. Where's the international drug table that tells us what Norway's prices are and how they're doing better than American pricing? The experts said there is no table like that. Where do they get their pricing bit based on Norway? The experts did not know. And out of the 43 drugs that are on the site, when they looked at it, well, yeah, because generics automatically, yes, Duke. They are only covering name brands, and that's part of their scheme. It's part of their hook. Okay. If you just simply, because I was self-covered for years as a consultant. Okay. So I would always tell the pharmacist I take for me or my wife or my kids, I take a prescription saying, "Hey, I'm paying out of pocket. Can you give me the best, generic, best affordable solution here?" And there was always a generic available. Okay. Very rarely was there not a generic available. Okay. Simply asking for the generic saved money. And in this case with Trump RX, the reporters found out it's simply asking for the generic or using a discount card program, you would do better than what they're telling you is all-time historical best pricing because Trump once again put his fucking shitty name on a product or a service because Trump RX is going to go Trump steaks. It's going to go Trump vodka. It's going to go Trump University. Okay? It's going to be the Taj Mahal after bankruptcy. That's what I'm saying. Because that's because all they're into now is how they can hook you by telling you the next lie you need to hear so you'll accept the scheme. Because one of the big part of the scheme they're using is, oh, Trump RX isn't doing that now. Wait a minute, you just a whole press releases. You did a press conference. The president took questions about this. Oh, he wasn't talking about now. Oh, silly. He's talking about forward-looking statements. Now, for people who don't know what forward-looking statements are, this is serious legal shit. If you ever work for a big company that produces products and services that a lot of different people are going to buy, like the company I used to work for, huge technology corporation in San Francisco, okay, leader in data, leader in security. Anytime I gave a talk online or like in Las Vegas at a conference, uh, I spoke in Las Vegas, I spoke in San Francisco, I spoke in San Jose. So it could be anytime that I speak about our products and services, there's a little warning slide I have to put up. Okay. Because I am working in solutions engineering and marketing engineering, which means we're looking a lot at the beta stage solutions and technologies, the stuff that's not ready for prime time. We don't even know sometimes whether or not it's going to be an actual product the customer can buy. Okay. So when I start talking about technology and being a senior technologist, shit, I'll talk about anything that has to do with cool techs and cool toys. Um, so like when I was doing our data streaming product, which was brand new, I had to be really careful and make sure right after my introduction and before I got into the meat and potatoes of the talk, I would have to put up this slide about forward looking statements. Basically, forward looking statements in the slide warn people is we're talking about stuff about the future that we're not sure is going to be real or not. Okay. You can't hold us liable for what we say in this talk that has anything to do with future looking statement. Because one, we're telling you they're future looking. We're warning you up front. And a lot of the stuff I did, because I was dealing, with the early one of the sister teams I worked a lot with was the early product adoption team, EPAT. That's basically the beta team. And I work with them multiple days a week because whatever's coming out of their shop is what we're beta testing in front of clients. Like at that time, the data streaming product was being used by the army in Wiesbaden, Germany. Okay, as a test product, not as a production product. So it was real. We had people using it, but we hadn't figured out the whole product space yet. Okay, so at the beginning is, hey, I'm going to be talking about stuff that are futures. I don't know whether or not this is going to become real product in the end. Things are going to change. Things may change. Things will probably change. Okay. So you can't hold my feet to the fire. But that's not how the White House under Trumpian politics is using forward looking statements. Forward looking statements are the excuse after the fact that you got caught lying. You said in your press release, and he said in during the question and answers, that they were delivering the lowest cost prescription drugs on those products available on the marketplace today. Then, when you got called on the carpet for your lie, you turned around and claimed it was a forward looking statement. That's not how forward looking statements work. If you know you're talking futures and you're selling something, you're talking about forward looking statements before the fucking conversation starts. Or you will be sued by your investors and you will be sued by your customers. You will be sued for shareholder fraud. You will be sued for material false information as it pertains to a publicly traded equity. Trust me, legal crawls up our ass every fucking year over forward looking statements. Yeah, don't have a forward looking statement in your talk. Somebody from legal is going to be on a Zoom call with you asking questions, and you're not going to like the questions. And you're really not going to like the questions when your senior vice president gets involved because somebody fucks something up. Big companies don't like blowing legal tires. They really don't. Things get ugly quick. So sitting there and telling me that Trump RX is still a marketing campaign containing forward-looking statements after you tell your sycophants, alkalites, and minions that you've solved the prescription drug problem, the price problem, the affordability problem. Affordability problem, he said last night, was made up by Democrats. So when you did the press release for Trump RX, you knew the information you were given was false. What you tried to do in the end is you try to cover it up, claiming it was a forward-looking statement. And that's about as dishonest as a forward-looking statement can get, by the way. Like, I had to be really careful on a bunch of products that were emerging. Like the stuff that we're just updating, like the main enterprise platform, that main engine, the big data sorting engine. When we're adding feature to it, I mean, I said the forward-looking statements slide because I didn't want to get in trouble with legal. Last thing I'm going to have to do is start talking to a lawyer. Unless they're my family attorney, I don't give a fuck. I don't want to talk to them. I usually find lawyers to be a pain in the ass. Especially when they legally review your articles for publication. You can't use that word. What do you mean I can't use that word? It's in the manual. Of course I can use that word because I know what that word means. They had trouble with lossless as a word in one of my articles. And I'm like, no, the technology is specifically and tested as lossless transmission of data. So it's like, go learn the platform before you tell somebody who's an expert in the platform what it does and what it doesn't do. Okay. So, misusing forward-looking statements, not a surprise to me. But can you retroactively claim that you were doing it as a forward-looking statement? My point is, no, you can't. Either you divulge you're talking about futures. Hey, this feature may be in the next product. Okay. When someone asks, "Hey, can you guys do this in this beta right now?" And I take notes and I go, I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you. I'll post a message on the community server. Can you guys do B? You don't know if you can do A. Can you do B? No, we can't do B yet. But I myself have already put in the engineering request. So the engineering request has been approved. It hasn't been implemented. Because yes, I agree with you. That feature needs to be there if we're doing, certain steps and certain methodologies. We need certain tools embedded in the solution, and that little tool thing we need wasn't there yet. I said, yeah, that's And again, I could say that honestly because I started the presentation with a forward-looking statement warning, and I got to say got to say is, yes, I want it as a feature. Okay. I'm asking engineering management to make it a feature and include it in this platform. Because my job was platform verticals and Internet of Things, IoT. So I'm like, yeah, platforms. I get it. We need a certain amount of tools, and those tools need to be ubiquitous. Completely covered because I started with a forward-looking statement warning. Okay. I didn't go back 4 weeks later and go, oh, you know that thing I told you in the presentation last month? I was kidding about that. No, I'd have been in trouble with legal. Um, this is something I warned about as it became pretty clear in the polling that Kamala Harris would not cut it in the election and she would lose by a wide margin. Uh, and the Electoral College would be um, a pretty bad loss for not just Democrats, but for the country, sanity, common sense, ethics, morals, the bailiwick. One of the things I warned, and this was probably late summer, I remember specifically talking to a couple of friends of mine about this. Um, Everything about Trumpian politics tells me they have no solution whatsoever for healthcare. None. Zero. Healthcare is supposed to be, in their eyes, yet another extraction method. You don't make a profit in America anymore if you're super wealthy. You extract the money you want out of people if you're super wealthy. So what I think what I think their fraud is going to be, there will be no replacement for the ACA, Obamacare. Okay. And this is the polling absurdity with Red Hat Rubes. You love ACA, the Affordable Care Act, because you see that subsidy taken down your bill on your letter from your healthcare provider every month. You love ACA. Okay. You literally, oh, thank you for ACA. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As soon as you use the media parlance term for the same law, Obamacare, you hate the same program. Thoroughly hate it. Should be abolished. The people responsible should be jailed. This isn't America. How the hell could you possibly do this to us? Same exact law. Formal name they wrote on the Senate on the House bill versus what the media nicknamed it. They're absolutely convinced it's two separate programs, and Obamacare is boarding nurses, triage nurses in the emergency room in the middle of flu season. Something ridiculous. Okay. So how do I know they don't give a shit about healthcare and they're just going to run it into the ground? The press conference today with the fraudster Dr. Oz and the couch fucker JD Vance. And I'll just give you a warning. I'm not a religious person at all. I've told you all that. Hardcore atheist here. But if you're religious and you pray to something, you better pray to whatever God you pray to that JD Vance never becomes president of the United States, or your life is going to be fucking miserable. He's actually 1,000 times worse than Trump. He is an evil little opportunist. And here's an example. JD Vance in a poorly rehearsed, poorly delivered little junkets press conference with Dr. Oz announced that this is several announcements today. One, they're stopping all Medicare in Minnesota because there's too much fraud. Hmm. Hmm. I notice you haven't stopped private jets of rich men, even though we know there's too much pedophilia and too much sexual trafficking of young children. Hmm. Okay. But black people, Somalis, did a crime, so we'll have to stop all payments to all people in Minnesota. Okay, there was a DUI last night in Arkansas. Did we close the highways in Arkansas? No, we didn't. So I was in JD Vance get in front of this hokey, disastrously poor, ill-prepared presentation where they tell you that they don't understand why medical durable equipment, prosthetics, all the canes, hip replacements, da 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 da, durable medical equipment is mostly paid for by Medicare. Why? Because most elderly people are on Medicare. But they can't understand for the life of them, Oz and Vance. They can't understand the life of them why a state with the highest amount of seniors, elderlies, retirees, however you want to picture them, the state with the most elderly people, the state with almost the highest, they are the highest per capita retiree. Maine is real close. There are more Medicare recipients in Texas and California because we have larger populations, but the highest per capita Medicare rate in the country is Florida because it is the highest retiree place in the country. But they're like, oh my God, Florida uses the most durable medical equipment. We don't know how that happens. So we're suspending all sales of all durable medical equipment in Florida until further notice, until we understand how durable medical products, which are made specifically for elderly medical patients in large majority, is being paid for by the number one insurer of elderly patients in America. And a big chunk of the money is going to the highest concentration of a retiree population in America. How we spending all this money on this damn terrible medical deserves? I don't know how did it happen, y'all. Are you fucking serious? Are you fucking serious? And they try to do this whole comedy bit about McDonald's, which blew up on them in 3 seconds. It was horrible. But then they awkwardly walked away. Well, you know, if the place with the most elderly people is using all the durable medical equipment funding, it's gotta be fraud because well, we don't know any other cause. It's not like elderly people live in Florida. Oh, they do? Oh, it's not like elderly people use the most amount of medical care in the country and cost us the most dollars as they age. Oh, they do? Oh, it's not like Florida has the highest concentration of retirees in the country. Oh, wait, they do? And why I know they're trying to literally bulldoze the healthcare system? You see who they nominated for Surgeon General? A literal wellness quack who could not make it through medical residency. She couldn't make it through step one of her fucking doctor career. And they're making her the Surgeon General of the United States. They're offering her a generalship in the government, and she couldn't be any less qualified. And I thought the Postmaster General was a joke. DeJoy. Okay. The guy who literally has no understanding how letters and parcels and packages and the market to deliver those packages work in the United States. He's in charge of the fucking post office. Okay. And all he sees the post office as is a political tool to manipulate vote counts. Now here comes, who's this dippy bitch? Casey Means. I'm not even going to call her doctor. I'm going to call her fucktarded Casey Means. You're a non-doctor that's about to be named the Surgeon General of the United States of America. And it should come at no surprise. She is an anti-vaxxer. And I guarantee you, because everybody in Trump orbits assimilates faster than the Borg do on Star Trek. It's only gonna be a matter of time before she turns around and says, nurses aren't professionals, which is fucking ridiculous. It's only gonna be a matter of time before she looks at Dr. Oz and goes, I don't know why we're spending all the money in Florida on old people's medical gear. Why do old people use medical gear? It must be a fraud. No, the fraud is the declaration. The fraud is the appointment of these stupid motherfuckers. If you don't know why fucking hip replacement hardware is used so much in Florida when Florida has the biggest senior population in the fucking country, you're either one, a huckster, or two, an absolute fucking moron. There is no gray area. But this is, as I've been telling you, another step in the deconstruction of the United States of America. We will not support disabled people in Minnesota. We're going to take away durable medical goods from seniors in Florida. Why? So we can give a tax break to Donald Trump and his cabinet again. We're going to spend $500 billion more on the military when they don't know what the $500 billion more would pay for. They literally want us to write a blank $500 billion check, not as the budget, but as the addendum to the budget for the military. It cost $500 billion to murder fishermen in their boats. I didn't know that. It cost $500 billion to rob oil from Venezuela and start a slush fund in Qatar. I didn't know that. It cost $500 billion to start a war on Main Street. I didn't know that. But as long as Grandma Betty doesn't get a knee replacement, America is saved. And this is another thing I've been telling you about. They literally think, these nationalist fucking psychos in charge in Washington, the whole group, from the cabinet people to the assholes in the House to the White House, they literally think all of us are dumber than the dumbest person in the country, Donald J. Trump. The guy who can't read, doesn't understand shit, and maths are completely foreign to this guy. He thinks you can discount pharmaceutical drugs by 1,600%. So if my prescription costs me $1,000, you're going to refund me 1,600% of $1,000? When did your math skills stop? The second grade? Really glad I spent the time homeschooling my kids and teaching them all the fundamentals of arithmetic and algebra, and then setting them off with classes and tutors to go. Two of them went all the way up to integral and differential calculus. Thankfully, we did that. Because why would you want your kids so stupid that you think you could give a 1,600% discount on a product you just sold? But that's what they keep selling us. They literally think we're dumber than Donald. And we'll all just get on our knees and go, well, thank you for saving us. The fuck? This makes no goddamn sense. And a while ago, I can't remember if I did it in an essay form or a video. I was talking about Florida and why Florida is so expensive. Is because there's such a super concentration of seniors that require a super concentration of senior services and support. Okay. Because if Florida goes under, the seniors are fucked. They have nowhere to go. Sure, they can go to a less expensive region like West Virginia, but is any of that senior support universe in West Virginia for them like it is in Florida? No, it's not. No, it's not. Go ahead and move to Arkansas as they close every single rural hospital under the big, beautiful bill and under the Medicare reforms. They will have nowhere to go if Florida goes south. You know, I've been asking, what what's the word that comes after gaslighting? I don't know what it is. My Grammarly came back this month. I pumped out almost 11,500 words last month, individual unique words. I still don't, even with that many words used in 30 days, I still don't have a word for what's worse than gaslighting. It's why I call today's thing, a post-truth nightmare. Because I know what gaslighting is. I don't know what this is. Because normally you don't get away with gaslighting like this. Somebody will eventually call you out to your face and it will be over. But like Trump RX, hey, wait a minute. None of these drugs are actually the cheapest. What he said wasn't true. Oh no, we were using Norway. It was a forward-looking statement. It was real silly. Okay. 98.75% of the fucking words in the State of the Union speech didn't mean anything and didn't spell out any truth. So, what do we do? Because I think we're at a crisis point that's far worse than Nixon, far, far worse. Any corruption or just malfeasance, whether it was Garfield or Grant or Jackson, they all pale in comparison now. And I know every president likes to bullshit, and sort of politics is bullshitting at some level. But when you detach yourself from all reality, or you make up a reality for us, we know that's not true. Okay, when I was trying to debug something on the switches, like I said earlier, I was working in the monitoring platform. My wife's busy, so I asked one of my sons, "Hey, can somebody go to the grocery store? Because we need a few things." And of course, my oldest son jumps right up. Oh, I'll take care of it. Oh, thank you. So he goes right to the store, gets a few things, mostly fruit, bread, milk, this Diet Coke. I like my Diet Cokes. I can't drink regular Coke anymore, or I shouldn't at least. Um, and a bottle of Irish whiskey, and it was like $115. Okay, we know how expensive groceries are because we go to the store every week, or every few days. Okay, every time I go out for dinner, I know, or go out for lunch, I know how expensive things are. You know, Luckily, I make good money and I can afford to still go out to dinner. Like I said, one of my favorite things to do with my wife is go out on a dinner date. Been doing that for what, 42 years now. Okay. I still go out, but yeah, I notice the bills. I noticed how a dinner bill with cocktails has gone from about $110 plus tips at a good fine dining establishment around these zip codes to $250 or more. That's just for two people. And my wife doesn't drink. She doesn't drink alcohol at all. She can't do caffeine either. Caffeine, caffeine is like crack to her. She can't do it. Um, but yeah, every time we go out, every time I get something serviced, every time I have to call the plumber, like, and I know how expensive things are. So like, I have a good plumber, and he comes when I call him, and he doesn't give me any shit, and he fixes my stuff right away. So he's here like for 30 minutes, and he hands me a bill for $225. I whip out $225 as fast as I fucking can. Thank you for taking care of us. I didn't have to deal with it. I'm in the middle of something else at work. You fixed it. I know it'll be fixed appropriately. Bye. Is $225 for a half hour out of a plumber a lot to pay? Yeah, it is. And again, that's almost double from 10 or 15 years ago. Okay. Um, Hell, I had the whole back line of the house snaked. They had to get up on the roof and double down with two snakes to get a clog out. And I think that only cost me like $350 like 15 years ago. If I'd had that done today, that's a $1,000 job. $1,500 maybe. So when you tell me that affordability is made up, it's a made up complaint, made up word, whatever you fucking said, it doesn't matter. I shop every day. I don't live in a cloistered life, living, in a condo where I lie about the square footage and my servants go to the grocery store for me. That's not the life I live. And I know how expensive it is here. Like, my wife and I tip pretty high. Even we know that, hey man, these bills are getting expensive. Even on that expensive bill, I'm still tipping 25%. I'm always tipping my Uber driver, unless they're a total asshole. I've only not tipped two Uber drivers because both of them were ridiculous pricks. One couldn't drive, and he was a prick. And I'm not only talking about the Trump boys who drive Ubers. They think the economy's beautiful, but they're living off tips, making half the living wage driving an Uber, while their primary asset in their life depreciates faster than ever. You know, like the whole model of Uber is kind of ridiculous to me. Even though I use it and I've been using it for years, it's kind of weird because um, in modern taxis, like post World War II taxis, remember the old yellow cabs in New York City? Those were custom made cars, okay, and they're made like frickin' tanks. The rest of the country, a lot of the a lot of the sorry, my wife just texted me and distracted me. um what the hell is that it's saying? My wife texted me. I totally lose my train of thought. It's time for a good sip of whiskey now. Yeah, even my neighbors, like I'm the anomaly in this neighborhood. I've never been to college. All my neighbors are teachers with PhDs, professors, lawyers, doctors, surgeons, nurse practitioners, PhDs. Um, I'm the weirdo of a couple, school administrators, that sort of stuff. I'm the weirdo of the neighborhood. What what one thing doesn't belong? It's Greg. He's a weirdo. But yeah, I even hear it for them. They're like, yeah, I'm feeling the pinch of the cost of living. You know, they're changing behaviors because of the cost of living. No, I had a great year in 2025. Another lucky stint. I was just in a big project all year, or 7 months out of the year. working my butt off. Um, one of the months early on in that project, I billed like almost 300 hours in 1 month. It was a direct response. Like uh, the enemy was inside the wire response. So I had to be up at night, literally counterattacking as people got inside the network. Um, so I had a great year. Um, but like getting quotes to do a remodel, like a bathroom or a kitchen remodel or redo the cabinets, the prices are absurd. I just had a neighbor redo the kitchen and move and take out a wall to open up the kitchen into in the first living room into one big, you know, like a cocktail space or visiting space, whatever you want to call it. And she spent like $120,000, and I'm like, oh, what? Yeah, I just spent 110,000, but that was on my kid's graduate school. Do I have another 6 figures to do cabinets? Oh, Jesus. But at some level, like cars, like I went out shopping with my youngest, my son, and he was buying his first car. Dad was there for moral support, a little financial support. I gave him a couple grand just to help him out and keep his payments down. Um, and I'm walking through the lot as he's, chatting up the guys that are going to do his paperwork because he had already done this online, and we're just there for the pickup and the signature kind of portion of it. And I'm looking at the prices of the vehicle on the lot out in Stockton. And I'm like, holy shit. I mean, I just bought a Ford a couple of years ago and I knew that was expensive. But looking at like how much the cars are now, especially if they're with a premium package, you can't get a premium package sedan for under like 50,000, 55,000 right now. So how is affordability a made up thing? It's at my income level and my wife works. Okay. I've gone through spates of really good earning years, really good earning periods in my life. We've done okay. We've done okay. I'm certain we're not wealthy. I mean, I don't live next door to Larry Ellison or anything. I don't live in that type of neighborhood. Um, I call my neighborhood, and some of my neighbors laugh and some of my neighbors get pissed. I call our neighborhood the $2 million ghetto. One neighbor hears me say that and she just busts up laughing. She can't stop. It's an inside joke about this section of the county. Um, but I've been living here for 25 years, so. But yeah, like living here for 25 years, I would love to move. I don't see a lot of mobility without going to an extreme low cost district, like moving from the West Coast to like Indiana or to a city outside a major metropolis where it's a little cheaper, but you still have like hospitals and theater and dinner out. Like I was shopping for ranches outside of Valencia, Spain. Um, I was thinking, yeah, 30-minute train ride to the city. I wouldn't want to be in the city every day, but I'd still like to go out and see a show and see a concert and have a nice, meal and whatever. I'd still like to go in the city every once in a while. It's like one of the reasons I like living here. I'm just a bridge away from going into the big city and doing anything I want on any day of the week. There's always something going on. But yeah, mobility is hard. Um, moving, here to near here is virtually impossible. I mean, I have a ton of equity in my home. I still don't see how I'd bust this big fantastic move that would put me in a better spot somewhere. I just don't see it. Um, and again, if I'm seeing like, wow, that grocery bag, that was a lot of money for that little grocery bag. Okay, because even if you took out the whiskey was on sale. It was only $24. Okay, that's still $90 for you know that small bag. Uh, I'm feeling it. I see how much a car repair is. I know how much the plumber costs. I think that may be a factor too. It's just reality. Like if you're a dad or a mom or you're adulting, you moved away from your parents and you're doing your own thing. Um, yeah, you know what everything costs because you have to deal with it directly. Unless you're a trust fund brat that puts everything on daddy's credit card or granddaddy's credit card in some cases. We had those at the place I used to work. We had people on their grandparents' trust fund. That's how rich the family was. I think once you actually have to live a working person's life, and by I mean working person, I mean anybody that earns a paycheck. Like going back to that old joke by Chris Rock, um, one of the funniest comedians of all time. I love him. I love some of his older uh, big 1 hour shows. Um, he was like, "Let me explain the difference between rich and wealthy. Shaquille O'Neal is rich. The team owner who signs his paycheck, he's wealthy." Exactly. Yeah. People don't understand the stratification of the economy. Like I know how rich some of my friends are, and they're fucking incredibly rich. Like I have at least two friends that are worth 100x more than I am. I think one of them is 250x more than me. Okay. But they still know how the world works. They didn't grow up in money. Well, one did, but they lived a pretty normal life. They lived in a normal house. They went to public school because dad insisted, even though dad was loaded. um, yeah, but you know what a grocery store is. You know what the auto mechanic shop, not just what the prices are. You know what it looks like. You know what it smells like. Okay, you know your mechanic by voice and face. He calls you on the phone. Hey, Bob. That sort of stuff. You think half these politicians, especially the wealthy ones that show up already wealthy in Congress, do you think they have any idea what a bag of groceries cost? If their type of car shopping is simply buying the best model of the most popular car other rich people want, and they just whip out a check and write a check for it, do you think they really know the impact of buying a car on a paycheck is? Because on cars, I'm halfway there. Like, I can't buy the biggest, best model. It's not like I drive like an Audi A8. I'd love to. I love those cars. Um, Especially the one with all four-wheel steering. That'd be a fun car going down Big Sur. um, but I buy mid-grade sedans for the family, and one of my cars is a hybrid. The other one's a slightly larger, regular sedan. I write a check for them, so I don't have car payments. But it's not like I'm going out and writing a check for an A8. Not happening. And there's an attitude because one thing I do know with the people that I know that are extremely like they're in the top 0.2 or 0.1% of the economy. That's how wealthy they are. Um, but with them, what I've noticed is there's no subtraction psychology with them. Oh, the working class just wants to take, take, take. Oh, I'm just going to have to claw something back from them. I'm always going to have to subtract from the other to make sure they're okay. One of my friends, you should see what he pays his ranch manager and the assistant ranch manager, a husband and wife from Mexico. He told me how much they get paid total comp per year. I'm like, that's like salary. I'm like, good for you. High five. And he goes, yeah, I want them to be able to retire. I want them to be able to take care of their kids and, back home and help their families, um, like one of them had a disabled sister or something. So, he paid him quite well. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we're supposed to do with money. Use it so things get taken care of appropriately. And the people we give the money to, it's a win-win. Because I don't think that, I talked about that in today's essay. In Trumpian politics, it's not just Trump. It's anybody who subscribes to his political sphere, his political space. Everything in life must be a zero-sum game. If I win, you must lose. Not just lose, In Trump's circles, minds, you must lose miserably. You must lose and be embarrassed about it. It's not like a lack of sportsmanship. It's like sportsmanship never existed. I liked working for a big tech company where the security guards and the mail clerk had stock options and got family leave and got full vacation and sick leave privileges. Okay. I was there for just a couple of months. The mail clerk comes by and he's good friends with the guy sitting next to me. And he goes, "Oh, how you doing? You were gone." He goes, "Yeah, I took my paternity leave. Yeah, I took 90 days." And he goes, "They gave you 90 days?" And he goes, "Yeah, and most of it was paid." And he goes, "Yeah, I loved it." He goes, "Yeah, I got to hang out with the baby and do a whole bunch of things around the house and had a really good time." And yeah. And I heard that. I was like, "Yeah, that's cool. That's cool." The freaking mail clerk has stock options and paternity leave. That's super cool. Okay. Of course, I'm a senior engineer. Of course, I get those things. I wouldn't work here. But then I found out the receptionist had it, the security guards had it. Everybody got covered the same. We weren't a company that subtracted from the bottom of the system to 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 pilfer enough so you could bolster the top of the pyramid. No, no. And I actually knew the CEO quite well at that company, and that's another thing. He was the anti-CEO, especially in the tech valley. Ooh, he was actually an incredibly smart, thoughtful guy who knew what the fuck he was doing. And he was not just mindful, but kind to making sure that everybody got paid well, got good benefits, got good time off. It was hard to take sometimes, like getting ready for the annual meetings, the kickoffs, the two kickoffs, plus the annual conference with the customers. Oh, Jesus. That's 100 days of they don't make enough fucking scotch to deal with this many problems. I mean, you're busy, but at least they paid us extraordinarily well, and they made sure they paid everybody extraordinarily well with the same gracious benefits, which I like. And I don't see that in the Trump world. The Trump world is like, oh, did you think you had something? Well, how could we take that away from you? Because you are not a contributor to society. And I've never liked that, especially growing up in a poor town in New England. Um, if you ain't a hobo and you got a job and you taking care of yourself or taking care of yourself and a family, more power to you, brother. Okay. I never, ever, 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 ever went, oh, that's a bad job. No, I would personally say that was a job that may not be for me, but you're a trash collector, garbage man. Okay. Yeah, we need our garbage picked up. That's a thing. That's a totally worthwhile job. Should we pay you? Should you get benefits? Absolutely, yes. 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 Okay. If I don't have someone pick up the garbage in my neighbor's garbage, we're going to have a fucking rat problem like no tomorrow. I already got a rodent problem. That's why we promote so many birds in the area, especially we leave the owls and the raptors alone and we encourage them to be around by keeping the trees a certain way and um, um, making sure lights are, pointed down to the ground, not up to, but like, especially with the owls, bug the owls with light pollution, so they can eat more of the rodents. We live right next to a forest. There's 12 square miles of forest behind me. Um, yeah. Do I like garbage men? I love my garbage men. I like my post office delivery person. Okay. I like the drain and sewage guys who work for the city because before the storms, we had to complain. They used to do it after the storms for overtime. We're like, no, 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 no. If you need more overtime, we're willing to pay for that. Don't worry, don't get me wrong. You got to come out after the storm too. That's great. But you got to get out here before the storms, especially up here, and make sure nothing's clogging the pipes. So if we have a downpour, nothing backs up and we don't get flooding inside the homes. Bristol says Trump admin is the Edward R. Rooney of this country, but with more corruption, crime, and violence. That's a great comment. Oh my god. Um, yeah. Edward R. Rooney, the principal. Say Ferris. Thank you. It's one of my and this funny thing, I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off, but I always have to explain to people who've only like seen the movie once is you got to realize Ferris is an asshole. He's not the good guy. He's the kid that gets away with everything and has no responsibility for all the screwed up stuff he does. It's funny the way they show that side of teenage angst and how everybody thinks they're cloistered. Yeah, it's the sister. Exactly. Yes. The sister is the good guy in that movie. Yes. Gotta love a fellow fan. Love it. And no, they did not push a rare Porsche out the window of the glass garage and shove it into the forest. It was a prop car. It was an expensive prop car. That stuff cost him like $50,000 to push a fake Porsche out the out the garage window. But it was like the Avengers movie where all the Harley Davidson fans went crazy because they thought the producers allowed the prototype Harley electric motorcycle to be destroyed when um, Scarlett Johansson was riding it, and they had to do official press release and tweets and shit like, no, 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 that was all CGI. We have the bike. See, it's right here. Yeah. So back to the downstream stuff. One of the worst thing about Trumpianism, they're all about blaming the bottom of the pyramid for the success of the top of the pyramid. And that's never made any sense to me. Okay. Like we had nurses go on strike again around here. I'm like, what the fuck? Nurses. We need nurses. I was just in the hospital for days. I had surgery. I got told you guys about that. Robot had to close my abdomen back up. So I'm in there and I'm under 24-hour care, being surveyed, checking me left, right, and center for the first couple of days. I appreciate the work that nurses do. I go out of my way to be extraordinarily polite to nurses. In fact, two of the nurses in my last day, you're so nice, Mr. Daly. I go, one, call me Greg. Mr. Daly's my dad. I know I look old, but please don't call me Mr. Daly. um, and you know, they were like, they were telling me like some of the people that come in, there's like instantaneously give them a hard time. And I'm like, why do that? That doesn't make any sense. It's like I'm not even when things don't go right. Like I went out for dinner, brand new place, Austrian joint we wanted to try. And I ordered a dish and it wasn't even fucking close. And I literally told the manager, goes, I don't do this in restaurants. So I'm going to apologize up front, but I'm going to have to tell you something I don't want to tell you. This is terrible. And he was like, oh my God. And he took it away and he goes, I completely apologize. That was totally screwed up. He goes, what can I get you? I said, I'll try the schnitzel instead. Schnitzel was amazing. Um, they couldn't do chicken pot pie to save their life, but this was. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I didn't make proclamations, I didn't tell them I was a Yelp reviewer. I just said I ordered a dish. I know what that dish is. We make it ourselves at home. Okay. I thought I'd see your take on it, but this isn't even what you said it is on the menu. This is terrible. It actually tastes terrible. Okay. Brought me the new dinner. Looked straight up after my first bite. Like, this is delicious. Thank you. Thank you very much. Waiter still got a big tip. Okay. Why yell at people that are providing you service? I don't understand it. Whether it's the garbage man, the nurse, the guy at the deli. The poor Indian gal at the liquor store. That was a few months back. Just going in and the guy starts yelling at her. I'm like, dude, everything's good. Whatever you want. Okay. It's a liquor store. You get what we want here. Okay. So stop yelling at her. Tell her what you want very calmly and then leave. Gives me a dirty look, calms down, tells me he wants whatever he wanted, and he left. And I'm like, okay. See how easy that was? Don't be an ass. But the exact opposite happens with the Trumpian top of the pyramid. They're all angry. They're all livid at our existence. Why are you fucking up everything? And we're like, half of us don't have two nickels to rub against each other. So how are we at fault? Trump would have punched the waiter in the head or buried him out back. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He doesn't take well to any even perceived affront. That's why the fawning stuff has to happen during the conference table meetings. They'll have to go, oh, we love you. You solved all our problem. It's a miracle. You saved America. Oh my God. That's why they have to do it because he's either being ingratiated or he's absolutely furious. There's no gray area. That's why he's been screaming at reporters more and more. And I think that has to do with possibly fluctuating medications and maybe inappropriate side medications. I don't know. But his outbursts have been pretty crazy. Like telling people they had 60 seconds left and they're talking about like major policy stuff. I'm bored. I'm busy. I have things to do much more important than this. Okay. But that whole attitude, they all talk like that. Go watch an interview with Howard Lutnick. Sounds just like Dear Leader now. Christy Nome. Pam Bondi. Pam Bondi in front of Congress flipping the fuck out. She was just doing her impersonation of Trump. Because if they don't act and sound like their cult leader, the cult leader gets mad. Okay. And what are they mad at? They're mad at you and me. They're mad Elon Musk isn't a trillionaire. Yes, a trillionaire with a T. How can you become a billionaire and then get mad? You won. You own most of the monopoly board. What are you so pissed off at? I don't get it. And you see very seldom are they pissed at each other. They're always pissed off at the other, especially lower tier on the ladder of the pyramid, however you like to visualize it. And I'm only using the pyramid analogy as an analogy for visualization purposes. I'm not saying people who are with lower level jobs belong on the bottom scale of anything. I'm just saying that's the way a structural diagram would look. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've once you understand that their premise of politics is being angry, you quickly realize there's no policy here. Because look at last night at the State of the Union. I read the damn thing and I'm like, huh? They always slip in at least one thing. Yeah, everyone likes to bullshit at some point in the State of the Union. I get it. I went through that whole damn thing and I made a text file of the transcript, gave the text file to AI. I was like, show me the policy proposals in this speech. There are none. The point of their politics is to be pissed at us, while robbing the system blind. They found that the biggest cash pot in the world is the U.S. Treasury, especially when you include the Social Security Trust Fund. So why go after those year after year profits when you can just rake in the money by ripping off the Treasury? And that's what they've been doing basically since Reagan, ripping off the Treasury. Because one thing they definitely wanted to talk about last night, inside and outside the chamber, was how they needed another tax break. And guess who deserved the tax break? And guess who didn't deserve a tax break? To spend an entire campaign season and a whole first year of a presidency complaining about the debt and deficit, cheering the fact that his illegal scheme with tariffs was paying off all the deficit. It was paying down some of the deficit. Deficit payments were actually low last year if you included the illegally collected tariff funds. But now that they're illegal and those funds cannot be used in that manner, it actually saved nothing. So the debt trajectory is no different. After Doge, after tariffs, the debt trajectory is going the same. Ski jump up. Their answer again, go all the way back to Lee Atwater in 78. We're going to give you a tax break because the solution to the debt and spending is growth. The only one not to be a total knucklehead was H.W. Bush, Daddy Bush. He looked at Reaganomics and he called it what it was, voodoo economics. You had to believe in voodoo if you thought that shit was going to work. But voodoo economics has been the majority of our fiscal policy for the government, for the federal government, since 1981. Fortunately, sane conservatives are coming up. Mitt Romney's been writing op-eds, tax me, not them. Smart. Because Mick knows his bill's going to go up. But he also knows the big money, the Thiels, the Musks, the Gates, the Ellisons, their Bezos, their bill is going to come due. Whole different story, whole different level. Okay. Okay. Next time, I think I'm going to talk about what kind of president we think we need. Can we look back at personas? And I think a lot about this. Had one research chat open too. What personas? Not a person who's here today, but what personas of the past do we need in the next president? And I think it's an amalgam. I'm going to try to figure out what attributes we need. So I think it's like making a good stew or a good soup. You need a few ingredients. Because I think in the last 5 years and a month, especially after last night's speech, Trumpianism is an empty bucket. Again, if you take anything that wasn't projection, misinformation, disinformation, yada, 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 like I wrote in the essay today, 98.75% of the words have to be taken out of the essay, out of the speech. We know what we don't need now. And also W. Bush showed us how we don't need empty foreign wars without outcomes, goals, or ROIs. We have a good picture. We have a solid picture of what we do not need. Now we have to be very smart and not attach it to a person. That's where we get lost in space. And I'll dig into that and break that down in the next live session. Um, like I know one of my picks from history actually would not work today, even though a lot of the aspects of what he did in his time is exactly what we need. But now that we know that Trumpianism is a failure, it's an empty shell, uh, empty soup type politics. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't get anything done. There's a lot of yapping going on. Pretty much no results. Um, like, and people, don't cover for the non-results thing. I got a guy keeps chirping at me on YouTube. Well, I can't find the fact check article that says the more ICE arrests they did, the more non-criminals were taken into custody. I'm going, yeah, it's on page 1 of their site. You just didn't look. I can't take a horse to water who's not thirsty. Sorry. But don't apply apologetics to not getting anything done or believing, the big lies of last night. He stopped 8 wars. It's not true. He said he stopped the war with Israel and Iran. If we stop the war with Iran, what the hell is half the world's air power doing moving toward Iran right now? Or at least moving to Spain, Turkey, Aviano in Italy, Diego Garcia, Spain and England, and Bitburg, Germany. The air traffic maps are cray cray. There's so much shit in the air right now. So if you solved world peace, oh, and by the way, in June 2025, you told Fox News you had, quote, totally obliterated, close quote, the nuclear capabilities of Iran. So why are all these planes staging a huge attack on Iran? So again, we know what we don't need. And I'm at the A-B table this out. You start a whiteboard. But let's think about what we do need. And I know the first big category I keep repeating, be independent, vote independent, that sort of stuff. I think we do need a counterbalance to the loggerhead problem I was speaking to last time. It did. This doesn't solve any problems. Okay? And I know sometimes you gotta start a ruckus. Like I gotta go a huge shout out. I'm going to stop this at 1:30. But I have time for a huge shout out to Representative Green with his "Black people aren't apes" sign when Trump walked in. Then he stood outside the door after he was told to leave the floor, which is the gavel's prerogative. You make any disturbance or anything they don't like, they can ask the sergeant at arms to ask you to leave. But if you don't leave, you can be moved and told to leave. Okay. Um, Anybody who has the gavel has that charge. Okay. He knew it was. He knew he was going to get kicked out. I knew he was going to get kicked out. I don't think he cared as long as he got the AP photo because that's where I saw it, the Newswire, with him standing there with the sign, holding it up, and I'm like, oh, good for you, dude. Good for you. This is the kind of cojones we need Democrats to have. When he does something egregiously stupid, call him out on that egregious stupidity. Yeah, I know his dedicated 20% base, and he's still at 20% with the overalls and a lot of bad issues. And he won't go much lower unless it gets really horrible. Um, but he's completely lost independence now. Such good news. Yeah, independents do not give a fuck about Trumpianism anymore. They don't want to hear about it. They don't want to talk about it. They don't like the policies. Some of the policies are negative against Trump, and with the independent polling as high as the high 80s. Um, Independents really don't like what's going on with the bullshit immigration enforcement, uh, goon squad shit that's going on with ICE and Border Patrol. Um, yeah, so we know what we don't need. That's pretty clear. What do we need? That is the question for the next time. I'll write that down. So yeah, don't go back and watch the State of the Union. It is actually a waste of time. It's Politicians need to be your tool, not your hero. Yes, yes. Boom, there it is. Boom, there it is. Okay. I mean, I liked Pete, the old Pete down on the Central Coast. What the hell was his name? The first guy who admitted he was an atheist in Congress. And he did legit stuff, like the stuff we needed, and I was familiar because I was working for a municipality, what kind of public budget things we needed, and how we needed assistance sometimes, and the county especially needed assistance. And he got things done that made sense. Not a lot of willy-nilly, pet project shit that you see from a lot of other people. Um, I liked the guy a lot. I met him in person and I shook his hand, right? But yeah, I never considered him my hero. I just consider him a guy that was doing a good job. The job I asked him to do, and he's doing it good. So, mutual agreement here. What traits do we need? Also, how do we get people to vote in their best interest? Traits, let's talk about that next time, Pam. That's an awesome question. Thank you for it. Um, let's address, I was going to stop at 1:30, but we'll go a little longer because it's such a great question. How do we get people to vote in their best interests? Um, okay, the first phase of the answer, some people will not like. Um, the politics from the pulpit, religious adherence to economic policies led by far right wingers who are much wealthier than the congregant hearing them. That influence needs to be eliminated, or we need to eliminate their tax-free status as a church. You want to be a political action committee on Sunday? You can be one. I have no problem with that. Or you can be a church. Okay. But literally convincing poor rural Americans that they should be rural and poor because the great leaders are looking out for them because Jesus loves dear leader. That's a fucking problem. Okay. And if you look at dictatorships around the world, especially the 20th century ones, using modern religious politicized dogma was the key to many of their successes. Even when places that aren't really religious, but they use things like necrocracy, North Korea. North Korea has a deity concept, but if it's of a person they actually knew in their lives, like grandfather ran North Korea for decades after he died. He was still the official leader of North Korea. Okay. So anytime you can convince somebody of a deity concept and you tell them that the politician is chosen by the deity, we might as well go back to Game of Thrones. Okay. Voting in their best interest is also teaching people um, that programs that are run by federal government and states and often counties, um, you have an opinion if it's a federal government program, and I'm talking to you, especially white men. Um, the majority of you have an opinion that those programs are all for poor minorities. Incorrect. Okay. There is a government program for about every American in America. Okay. Do you own a home? Then there's a government program for you. It's called the home mortgage tax deduction, the interest deduction. That's a program they made for you as a homeowner, as a class of American. Okay. Are you a cattle rancher in Nebraska? Oh, we subsidize the fuck out of you. because we pay $100 million a year just for research to make sure anthrax doesn't take out the meat supply. Yes, there's a bunch of anthrax and also what's the other one? Marzen, that Ebola-like thing. Yeah, both of those are in Nebraska. So the federal government spends a lot of money on the cattle industry, and I think it's a dollar well spent. Anthrax is a horrible fucking disease. You really want to keep that monitored. That's why I hate RFK, because if we ever did to the cattle ranchers in Nebraska what they're trying to do to children through RFK and Dr. Oz and the rest of the fucking idiot clown car at health, okay, the cattle man would be breaking out their AR-15s. Okay. Do you think the cattlemen are not vaccinating their cattle in the rudiments? Do you really believe that? If you do, you think cattlemen like losing money, and that's already a problem for them, especially when you start to import Argentina beef. Best interest, use proper examples, proper proven examples you can show them in a non-biased mainstream good source. Okay. Why are agriculture farmers suffering? Because of tariffs. This is provable. He destroyed the global soybean and soy gum markets for farmers all over the Midwest. He fucked them. He fucked them hard, and he fucked them for the next who knows how many years, how many decades. We don't know. But he, in fact, fucked the farmers. Okay. Why is there a bourbon glut? Because the LBOs, the liquor control offices, up in Canada, the provincial offices took American booze off the shelf because of the tariffs. That is a provable fact. There's a speech from the guy who started it all, Ford, the crazy fucker from Ontario. Go to CBC's YouTube site. He gives a speech about it. And he's like, yeah, how do you like them apples? Ontario, number one customer of Jim Beam. Not anymore. Okay. Is it in the best interest to destroy markets over animus grievance and bullshit? No, it's not. It's in best interest to make farcical claims they have no expertise in. This administration's is showing no interest in children, no interest in anything. This is not make American healthy again. This is make measles again great. However you would say it, make measles great again. I mean, when you literally have people, especially on social media, unfortunately, literally claiming there are no negative outcomes that jeopardize health or life with the commonly inoculated diseases. Again, if we ever did that to the cattlemen would come fucking unglued because the first outbreak of disease on their farms, they got out of business. They're bankrupt, and they know what happens when they lose their land. Howard Lutnick or Howard Lutnick-like object comes sailing into Nebraska to buy up his land on the cheap and take his land, take his business, and do whatever he wants with it. It won't be his anymore. That's what a disease outbreaks means to a cattleman. Okay. Egg prices were not high. Grocery prices are not high because woke exists or Antifa. Shut the fuck up. You're being an idiot. It's in your best interest to understand it. I wrote an essay about this. It's in my essay list. It's in your best interest to understand that most of the grocery store space is consolidated under private equity ownership. You have consolidation, therefore you have limited competition, therefore you have higher prices. The more you know. And just keep going down that line, Pamela. Okay, there's so many examples like right now, like you got a buddy that owns a truck or a dudette that owns a big truck. They need a big ass starter, big alternator to, and they're wondering why it's quintuple the price it was last time. Well, tell them it's got to cross the border several times. You know, the casing is formed in Mexico, the internal gears are made in a plant in Indiana. The wiring is all done in Ontario. The assembly is done in Texas. Okay, everything that time that crossed the border, Trump cost you another, who knows, 10, 15, 20, depending on the day. Every time that part crossed, your price went up on your part. Your alternator should be $300. It's $1,300 because of tariffs. There's a whole line of best interest arguments you can make. Like them trying to fuck with the VA. It is not in community's best interest to defund the Veterans Administration. The best thing we can do is reform, rebuild, improve, and expand coverage for veterans. Yeah. I got heavily involved in the city's local nonprofit NGO when they were building an apartment building for veterans. And the reason I got involved instead of donating some serious money, at least serious money on my income level, while trying to save for my kids' college, of course, um, was they're going to build the apartment building because in the city, uh, 25% of the homeless are veterans to go all the way back to the Vietnam War. Okay. It's not in our community's interest to lessen VA services, improve, spread out micro offices, medicine appointments, much better in mental health availability and mental health continuous treatment. Okay. That's in the best interest of our community, or we get 25% of our homeless being veterans. Stuff like that. Okay. Okay. Remember, be independent, vote independent, run for local office as an independent, be good, be kind, be generous. Don't be like anybody in Trump's orbit. And always think about what we're going to do in the next iteration because there's still a lot of work to do. Look toward the midterms, something we have to win. So, best interest was an absolute beautiful question for tonight's discussion. Points. Um, and I'll talk to you very soon. So, until next time, please think about it.